It's important to remember in any military conflict that wars cannot be won in the air alone. Your army should consist of a ground force comprised of cheap, recyclable units to engage with the enemy and draw their fire, backed up by armoured units with long-range firepower. To focus exclusively on air units, I've set up the stage here on Gods of War 2 to show you guys a thing or two about aerial warfare. Now, air units are very specialised, very expensive, highly mobile, and have very little armour. Each air unit fills a specific role and purpose within the game, and when used efficiently, can be well worth the investment. Remember, your air force augments your ground force. Your army should never totally depend on air superiority. Use your air force to take out high-profile targets and expand your map control. So we start with the Scout. The Scout plane is an effective intelligence unit with a long line of sight, a high speed, but no weaponry. These are the cheapest air units available and are best used to fly over your enemy's base to see what kind of strategy they're working on. An interesting alternate use of Scout planes for maps such as Painted Desert is peeper bombing. Park them next to stray metal extractors or radar towers and destroy them with Control D as a method of low-level harassment. The strategic role of fighters is primarily in the early game to harass an enemy's undefended base or to intercept an oncoming bombing run. Dogfighting in TA is really fiddly, particularly with how the fighters get a huge run up before firing their shot, but you can cut down a lot of their travel time by micromanaging their flight path to increase the average firing rate. Bombers make up one of the principal tactics of air units, but it can be tough to pull off an effective bombing run. The most basic way to execute a bombing run is to group your bombers, have them patrolling in the air for fast response, then having them attack a point of interest such as a Big Bertha or advanced lab. Another, much more shocking way to do this is to have several groups of 5 or so bombers guarding a cheap, disposable unit like a peeper, then using shift to queue an attack order on your enemy's base. When you're ready to attack, destroy the unit they were guarding, thus triggering their attack order. Then you play the Ride of the Valkyries as loud as you can and watch the chaos unfold. Another way to handle bombers is with a technique called carpet bombing, which makes use of a small bug in the game's code that allows your bombers to drop multiple series of bombs in the one run. Simply position your bombers so they do the most damage. Listen for the clicking sound when they release their bombs, then use A to attack another target in their flight path and they'll release another load. Pulling this off gets extremely difficult when the game's set to a fast speed, so I recommend only doing this when you've agreed to a speed of about 6. Transport planes carry one unit at a time through the air and do not attack. I've found the most useful to airdrop construction units from place to place instead of using construction aircraft, which build things more slowly than other kinds of construction units. There is, however, a much more interesting use for transport planes. They can pick up enemy units. This opens up a very, very cool trick. Use a transport plane to load an enemy construction unit and fly it back to your base. Make sure your defensive towers are set to return or hold fire so they don't shoot down your plane, then have your commander capture the unit in the air. This might make the captured unit bug out once it's yours, but you can fix that by loading then unloading it with your transport plane. In games that are ARM versus Core, you can get access to both sides' units and structures this way, and yes, it is also possible to load your enemy's commander with a transport plane and then destroy it with Control D to win. But while this is really awesome, it is sometimes considered cheating. Finally, we have construction aircraft. Con planes are handy to have because they don't take up space on the ground, but they do build things more slowly than their land and sea-based brothers. This isn't a big deal for long though, because much like how scoring kills and becoming a veteran improves the performance of military units, giving a construction unit a very busy career will slowly improve its speed and build time. Here's a tip regarding military production. One lab with a whole bunch of con planes is a faster and cheaper option than a line of labs producing units unassisted. A bunch of labs costs a lot of metal that you could be using on units and also provides a juicy nuke target for your enemy. Instead of producing a few units at once every 30 or so seconds, you could be producing one unit every 3 or 4 seconds at a time, and besides, A fleet of veteran con planes can build berthas and fusion reactors in no time. Tech 2 aircraft are pretty simple. They're generally just more powerful versions of the Tech 1 aircraft, although a few do have secondary weapons and a bit more armor. There is an exception though with the gunships. These are crazy powerful air-to-air and air-to-ground attack planes that are most effective for blitzkrieg-style super-fast assaults. Assign them to a control group and have them patrolling behind your army. When you spot a high-value target like Goliath tanks or an advanced lab, select them and take it out while your enemy is focused on the ground battle. Okay, one last thing. You can maximize a squadron's effectiveness while reducing its visual footprint by kiting them in the air, making many planes look like just one. The easiest way to do this is to make them hover on the spot by issuing a move order to your lab, then using Shift-P to queue a patrol order on the exact same spot, thus making a constructed plane move to a spot in the air and then hover in place. Be sure to micromanage your movements though, because if you leave them idling without a hover order, they will scramble, and that makes them very difficult to kite once more. So that basically wraps up this lesson for today. Well, yeah, I made this one because I noticed that there was lots of pretty noob tactics regarding air units. People just tend to just have them flying in circles around their base and then leave them, and they're really, you can do a lot more with air units. So I hope this helps you guys. Anyway, take care. See you guys next time, and Happy New Year! Oh god, that's so lame.